What would you say is the biggest misconception of your job?
I'd say the biggest misconception about being a writer is that writers just write all the time and have all this time to write, and somehow we just get paid just to write.
Mhm.
There are some people that are fortunate enough to sell lots of books or write for film or television, and or have made a project that has enough money to sustain them. But most people who are writing, especially those like myself who are still kind of building and growing, have to do other things to supplement, income. And we have to write really when we have the time. But there's a lot of writers, even like people's favorite shows or favorite books, that at their start they were writing in their spare time. So but I think that's a big misconception, that we just spend 8-10 hours a day just writing all day. It's not true.
Right. And to that point, I mean, this podcast is some ways an extension of what you just said, a means of creating value, of, I guess, trying to build out things financially for writing. You know what I mean? So I agree. Totally. Welcome to the Imagine Exposure Vodcast. We have a very, very special guest. This guest I knew back during my time when I was in Dallas, Texas. Jack of all trades, does a lot of incredible things. And I'm happy that he is on this platform and just able to share his experiences. I am talking about none other than the writer aficionado, William or Billy Rose. How you doing, Billy? Welcome to the
Right.
welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it, man. Glad to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, our first question out the gate, we ask everyone is, who are you and how do you define it?
Oh, who am I? So my name is Billy Rose. I'm a believer. I'm a Christian. A husband, a father. I'm a writer. I write in different mediums, everything from poetry, fiction, TV, film, and I'm an educator. I work in education as well.
All right. What is your story?
So, so my story really can be kind of framed around. I did a lot of things trying to kind of avoid being a writer. So, I grew up and kind of came from a family that was pushing some really really good things, like go to college and do well. And so I did that. Went to college, went to Tuskegee University, studied animal science, was on track to be a veterinarian. But that's not something I really wanted to do. Like, it's something I knew I could do, but I always was creative and wrote, and I was in the band and did these different kind of artistic things. And so writing was always just kind of part of my life, and ended up getting into nonprofit work. That's where me and you met. Got into ministry as well. But all the whole while, writing was a big passion of mine. So a couple years back, made the decision to pursue that, and have been doing that now for a few years.
Awesome, awesome. What would you say is the biggest misconception of your job?
I'd say the biggest misconception about being a writer is that writers just write all the time and have all this time to write, and somehow we just get paid just to write.
Mhm.
There are some people that are fortunate enough to sell lots of books or write for film or television, and or have made a project that has enough money to sustain them. But most people who are writing, especially those like myself who are still kind of building and growing, have to do other things to supplement income. And we have to write really when we have the time. But there's a lot of writers, even like people's favorite shows or favorite books, that at their start they were writing in their spare time. So but I think that's a big misconception, that we just spend 8-10 hours a day just writing all day. It's not true.
Right. And to that point, I mean, this podcast is some ways an extension of what you just said, a means of creating value, of I guess trying to build out things financially for writing. You know what I mean? So I agree totally. What would you say? Who are the people in your vocational story in which you
Repeat that last part. Right.
Who are the people? Sure. Sorry. Who are the people in your vocational story in which you are the most grateful for?
Oh yeah. So I have to start with my parents. You know, I know it's kind of like the cliche, but they're a big part of my vocational story. Partly because they always encouraged all of us, me especially or specifically, to pursue whatever God kind of put in our life to want to do. So, you know, when I was pursuing being a doctor, they were behind it. When I pivoted to want to be a writer, they're behind it. And so that's really big um, in my life. I think some other people that I'm really grateful for in my vocational journey has been so I have a writing coach, and Ruth Buchanan, and she's been really instrumental as of the last few years of really just pushing me as a writer and supporting me in my writing. So.
Awesome. Awesome. How did your childhood passions as a kid prepare you for your adult career choice?
Yeah, so I mean, I was a kid who grew up like I loved watching TV. You know, I know like there's a lot of people who kind of grew up and their TV was limited, and mine was to a certain extent, but I watched a lot of TV. This is back in the day when reruns was a real big thing, so I would watch old shows. You know, everything from like I Love Lucy, Gilligan's Island, and Good Times, 227. You know, all that kind of stuff. And
Oh, yeah.
I just loved the TV and movies and stories. And so those kind of passions, eventually you watch enough and you do enough, and growing up, I was like, man, I'd love to, be a part of that. I'd love to create something like that. And so also was really big in the books, read a lot, love like the Goosebump books, Animorphs, so I love those kind of series of books, and I read a lot of that. And so, yeah, I think all that, swirled together and has kind of fueled my continued passion now to be a writer, to be a storyteller, and to create my own stories, and hopefully one day something that'll be on TV.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, this one, interestingly enough, talking about writing, is about the economy of words. Economy of words. And so, how would you explain what you do as a professional in one sentence? Then, how would you explain what you do as a professional in one word?
All right. So this is a tough one, but I'll have to read this one.
Okay,
so
cool.
what I do in one sentence, I convey real life through imaginary stories. Convey real life through imaginary stories. That's not an original. I heard someone say that before, and I was like, yeah, that's good. And what I do in one word is I write. I write. It's really that simple.
That's cool. That's cool. What do you love the most about your job as writer?
Man, I really love, I've learned to love just like the time spent writing. It could be really hard, but I love just being able to escape into a world I'm creating. I love to be able to see that vision, come to life, being able to have something completed. Um, yeah, I really enjoy just that process of coming up with ideas and working with ideas and getting feedback, and I just really enjoy that process.
All right. On the other end of the spectrum, what would you say is the biggest challenge?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest challenge being a writer is just the need for like time, especially like time alone. Um, and as a writer yourself, like there's nothing, nothing's gonna get written unless you're just sitting down and doing it.
Absolutely.
There's no shortcut to it, and so if you don't make that time, if you don't have that time, it can be really difficult. So times in my life where I get really busy, or, you know, other responsibilities take hold, you know, it can eat away at the writing time, which then, you know, as a writer, you want to write and you have ideas and you want to get them out. And so that can be the really difficult thing. I think some people may have like passions or jobs or different things where they can, it's, you know, a group setting, it's a lot of people can work together, but writing is so solitary in a lot of ways. So that can be tough too, just having to pull away. And, you know, okay, especially I have a family, so my children are like, okay, let me pull away for a couple hours, I need to write. And it's like not something that they really can be a part of, you know, so that can be tough.
That's real. That's real. I definitely agree with that. What steps must a person accomplish to either become certified or respected in this profession?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I mean, so anyone that's like interested in being a writer, no matter what kind of writing they want to do, I think the first thing you have to accomplish is you need to write. You know, I think it seems pretty simple, but you know, you can go to school, you can get a, you know, English degree, or you can get a film or, you know, screenwriting degree or whatever. But if you're not writing and writing a lot and producing, you know, good scripts or good, you know, writings, good samples, then that educational stuff doesn't really matter. I mean, it'll matter like if you want to teach, but as far as like wanting to get stuff published or wanting to get stuff read, you know, it has to be written. And so when it comes to like on the screenwriting tip, whether that's TV or movies, you know, you have to get your stuff in front of people, whether that's, you know, an agent or getting, you know, stuff read and people that have influence, whether that's you're trying to go for Hollywood or independent film or whatever. You just got to get the people that are actually making stuff happen. You got to get them to read it and to get feedback and to see if it's if it's working, if it's something that could get made. But on the, you know, the other tip, if you're writing a novel or writing something nonfiction, you know, again, you still want to get it in front of publishers, or if you're going to self-publish, you know, I know you've talked about before, you've got to at least get it in front of some people to give you some feedback before you get it out to the world.
Sure, I agree. See, okay, and I know. Well, I'm just gonna put it out there, and you tell me, because I know with salary and, you know, writing, how does a person negotiate either salary or the value of their services in this creature?
Yeah, with writing, it can be, so it can be really broad, as you know. So like if you're a freelance writer, which I've done some freelance work, depending on what it is, you know, I'll just go on Google and kind of see what's the kind of going rate for a freelance job, you know, depending on how long it is. But when it comes to other things like, you know, like if you're trying to sell a script, you know, that's a little more like there's a little more standard for that because there's like a union, like the writers union, writers guild, and things like that. So you'll have, you know, that's where agents and stuff come in and managers to help negotiate your price and stuff like that. Again, I'm not there. You know, I've never sold anything, but you know, I do read up and know about that on that end. So if you're going to be kind of a writer and working in Hollywood, or a writer in that sense, you know, that's how you negotiate that. When it comes to like getting something published, again, that goes back to working with the publisher, coming up with the contract and all that kind of. So it really varies, you know, depending. But I will say, writers on a whole like aren't rich. You know,
Sure.
it's not,
Sure.
I think sometimes people see like, you know, someone like Stephen King or J.K. Rowling or something and think like, oh yeah, you know, writer, you can be rich, but it's like, no, they're the great exception. Most writers making a pretty modest income. And like I said, they're also doing other jobs to kind of supplement. So
No, that's really real. Let's see. Okay, so this is a time machine question.
okay.
Based on what you know now about your vocation, what advice did you give yourself if you can go back on the first day of the job?
Man, I would, you know, if I had a time machine, I would go back and just tell myself to not be afraid to pursue writing. Because I wrote my first like film script just an idea I had. I was like 19, didn't really know anything. I just knew I had the story and I knew I liked movies. So I just started writing. And I would have, if I could go back, I would just encourage myself, like, that's okay. Like, just write. You have a story, keep going, keep writing. And I would tell myself, hey, this is going to take a lot of time. Like, don't expect this to be a quick thing, because it just takes time. And the stories of people that make it really big really quickly they're rare, and that's not the normal process for most people. So I think those are the two things I would tell myself, like, just to keep writing, keep going, and just be patient, because it's going to take time.
How do you prepare to one day transition from this role, either in-game retirement? How do you prepare to transition?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm still relatively young. I know I'm not super young, but relatively so. I mean, this is something I've thought about. And I think one thing with writing is that, you can write, if your mind is still sharp, you can still write well into your old age. There are, even screenwriters that are in their 70s, who are still, I think the guy who wrote Dune, the movie Dune, he's like in his 70s. So it's like, it's a profession that you can do well into an old age. So that's part of it. Is I want to write as long as I can, as long as I have ideas, and as long as God gives me life, I want to write. And of course, you can do put away savings for for not vacation, for retirement and things like that, as well. But kind of the end game for me, though, I think, is if I am able to get to a point where I have something published that's widely read, or if I am able to get, a movie made or written, part of my just bent is as an educator, as a teacher. And so I would want to be able to leverage whatever that is, just to help, someone else, help someone younger, be kind of the mentor or the teacher that I wish I would have had when I was young, that kind of thing. So I think I see kind of the end game being doing what I can, but then turning around and helping someone else, or helping others as well.
How do you? Excuse me. I'm sorry. These are our last two questions. So with each vocation, what we try to do is we try to find the essentials of the business from a practitioner, from someone who's actually doing it, so that as you kind of alluded to in the last question, kind of investing into the next generation, so that they can kind of separate what is said by those who may not necessarily have actually done the particular work, and those who actually do the work. And so my question to you is, what are the essentials of your business? We call it the cultivate countdown. So it could be 2, 3, 5 steps to writing. What would you say is your cultivate countdown as a writer?
Yeah, no, so I thought this was really good. It was good for me to even come up with these. So I actually came up with 5.
Awesome.
5, and I think these are pretty general, but I think anyone that has a desire to write, these are 5 things I found that are helpful. So number 1 is to write, and to write often. Some people say to write every day. I'm not necessarily in that camp where you have to write every day, but I would say write often. Even if it's just a short little thing, to write every day or write often. Second, I think as a storyteller, as a writer, we need to also intake stories. So whether that's through movies, television, books, comics, watching the news, listening to other people tell stories, YouTube, whatever, intaking stories in your life. I think that helps just as a writer as well. Number 3, I'd say socialize. I think for a lot of writers, it's really easy to just be by ourselves. But a lot of writing, especially writing like scripts, is character study. And if you're not around people, that affects like how you write dialogue, because your dialogue doesn't sound real, because you're not really around people hearing how they really talk. So I'd say socialize and just live life, allowing life to happen and getting away from the writing so that you can just live, and that inevitably that will affect your writing, four, I'd say, is it kind of goes with one, but I'd say specifically to journal, because I think journaling has helped me with kind of the more introspective aspects of the writing. And so, being able to get things out for myself, and journaling is writing, so it's also, if you get nothing else done that day, at least got a little writing done in your journal. And then I'd say five would be getting a mentor and or a writing group. I have both. I have a writing mentor as well as I'm part of a writing group, and that's been really helpful from the writing group standpoint, because we read each other's stuff, and my writing group is specifically people that are trying to break in as a television writer. So we're all at the same place. We're all writing scripts. We're all trying to apply for different fellowships, and we're all, kind of pushing towards the same goal. And that's been just really helpful as we just kind of sharpen one another, help one another, while, just growing as writers together. So those would be my five. I'd say write, intake stories, socialize, journal, get a mentor or a writing group.
That's great. That's a great list. I love it. I love it. I wish there was one for, like, when you talk fiction, like a group like that. But like, it's cool that you have a group of people who you can bounce ideas off of, get feedback, and give honest critique. So that's awesome for writing. But I would say any creative field, like that's a very helpful resource.
Yeah.
All right. Absolutely. So one motivational quote. This is a quote that we put on the meme. If you had to have one saying or one something that was associated with you, what would you say?
Yeah, I would, and this, as a motivational quote, I thought about this as just like something for someone who maybe is considering writing or something. So my quote, I would say, is, if you have a story to tell, write it down. If you have a story to tell, write it down. I think sometimes we sell ourselves short, and if you have a burning story inside you, whether it's fiction, nonfiction, whatever, write it down. Just get that story out. You never know where that could go. What it can do, or who it can inspire, who it can connect with. And so, if you're even thinking about considering writing a book, you probably should go ahead and write it, because most people aren't thinking about writing a book. So yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. I mean, it's wealth of knowledge and information and expertise. All right. So final thoughts. And when I put out the content, where do you want people to follow you or connect with you or buy your work, or where do you want people to go?
Oh yeah, that's good. So final thoughts is just, one, thank you. Thanks, Zach, for this opportunity. When you started Grace to Cultivate, I was really excited because I felt like all the things that when I knew you, when we were both in Dallas, like all the things that you were doing, this all kind of like, this feel like it's like the culmination of so many things that you were doing. So I'm really excited for you and appreciate you letting me be a part of it. As far as where people can find me, so I'm on socials. I'm on Facebook. You can search Billy Rose. I'm on Twitter and Instagram as well. It's at _Billy_Rose, and the O is a 0. I don't know. Maybe we can post it on something. It's kind of hard to find sometimes, but I'm on there. And and you can go to people can go to poemsforthosewhocare.com. Me and my wife, we put out a poem volume in 2020, yet during the pandemic. It's an illustrated poetry book, and we have it up on Amazon as well. So poemsforthosewhocare.com. It's called For Those Who Care, and especially for those who don't. And we'll be having some more content coming pretty soon. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I mean, you thanking me, but I thank you for sharing your knowledge, your wisdom, expertise. I feel like all of those conversations we had back at champions of hope and like even around the table and things like that. Like I feel like those should have been like bottled in some sort of way, you know what I mean? And so I love Vodcast because it allows people to have that, have access to it, but also to be able to learn from it, pull from it, and that sort of thing. And so it was only natural that you be definitely on the podcast. I do appreciate you coming. So thank you so much for your time, your expertise, and you have a great day.
All right, you too, Zach. All right, appreciate it, man.